All right, good morning, ladies and gents. Let's go ahead and get started. So, today's lab is going to be chocolate chip muffins. Now, so far in this class, we have done the muffin method. The biscuits the other day was the biscuit method. Now, today, despite the name of what we're doing today is going to be the third mixing method, which is the creaming method. Okay, so that is using fats that have been kind of sitting out at room temp just for a little bit. And here today you are going to either need a mixer, a hand mixer, or if you don't have any of those, you can still make this. You're just going to kind of need a good wooden spoon and just some good old-fashioned arm power. Okay, for this recipe, little bit different today as far as the measurements. The measurements are only going to be volumetric. Okay, so I normally don't like to do that. However, just this recipe provided to us is based on volume, so that's where we're coming from today. All right, so for this recipe, you're going to need half of a cup of flour, a quarter teaspoon of kosher salt, a fourth teaspoon or quarter teaspoon of baking powder, an eighth of a teaspoon of baking soda. And remember, make sure you're taking your time. Don't get these two confused. They're not interchangeable. 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter that's been softened. 2 tablespoons of white sugar and 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. So 2 tablespoons of white sugar, 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. Half of an egg, and I'm going to show you how to get half of an egg. Half a teaspoon of vanilla. A quarter cup or fourth of a cup of regular milk. And then finally, a quarter cup of chocolate chips. All right, so the first step you are going to do, most important here, is you're going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Now, as far as equipment, what you're going to need, like I said, I talked about the mixer here already. If you have a stand mixer, use that. That's the best thing to use. You're going to need a couple bowls, not only for your dry ingredients, but also to kind of separate the egg. I'm going to be using a spatula, a disher. Since I'm going by volume, I'm going to use my measuring cups and spoons. And then finally, a muffin tin. Now, if you do not have a muffin tin, that is perfectly okay. You can still make this. If you have a regular cake pan, you can just make a larger kind of chocolate chip muffin cake. Also, weirdly enough, if you have a metal can that is empty, so like a can for canned vegetables or fruits and stuff like that, and that is empty, if you take the outside label off of the can, you can actually bake stuff inside the can itself, since it's made of the same material as a cake pan. Whatever way you choose, we're kind of going to talk about later about how to check for doneness and everything. So you choose what you have available to you. Okay, so first step, preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Now, step 2, and the most important step in the creaming method, is I'm going to take my 2 tablespoons of softened butter. I'm going to put that into my mixer along with the 2 tablespoons of sugar. Oops. Guess it would help if I got all of the wax paper off of the butter. And then for the brown sugar, just whenever you're measuring brown sugar, what you want to do is you want to scoop, and then here, just kind of pack it down just a little bit and then level it off. Okay, so step 2, I'm going to cream together the sugars and the butter together for a good 4 to 5 minutes on high speed. Now, before I get started and make the mixer get loud and everything, this is super important that you take your time during this step. Do not just combine it or do not just turn on the mixer and just stop whenever they are combined. The whole purpose of this step is to beat air into the mixture. That is the most important step with the creaming method. If you go into baking and pastry 2, we go a lot further into the creaming method and just kind of the science of it. But for our lab today, you just need to know you need to take your time in this step because it adds air, it creates a better yield, so you'll get more muffins or cookies out of this. And yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna turn that up to low speed to start, just until the butter is kind of broken up. Okay, let me move the camera around here. Okay, so this is what it's like at first. Then I'm gonna slowly increase the speed. Okay, real quick. So you notice how it's still kind of like, clumpy, even though the butter is mixed in with the sugar. It's very dense and clumpy. Well, after 4 or 5 minutes, you're going to see a change where it's a lot more airy and a lot more fluffy here. So I'm going to turn this on, let it go for about 4 or 5 minutes, then I'm going to show you what it looks like right when we're done. Alright, so this is about 5 minutes later. As you can see, it's a lot lighter, a lot more fluffy. And you can see it has a lot of air into it. This is great. This is exactly what you want for anything made using the creaming method. Okay, now that we've gotten that done, we're going to go to our third step, which is to beat in the eggs and the vanilla. Now, in our recipe, we said to beat half of an egg. Now, as you can probably tell, this recipe is halved from the original. So if you want to scale up this recipe using your own ingredients, all you need to do is double, or really, I would say even times it by 3. So either way, it's up to you. Okay, in order to make a half of an egg, what I just need to do is I'm going to crack out an egg, and then using either a whisk or a fork, I'm just going to just beat this together until it's smooth. Okay. Once it's smooth, I'm going to pour off about half of it. Okay, so it's about 2-3 tablespoons. So again, kind of rough estimating here. Okay, if you really want to be precise, you can actually weigh it and then do it that way, but here, eyeballing it's okay. So I got my half an egg, and I'm going to add in my vanilla. Okay, so I'm going to turn the mixer on, and I'm going to add in the egg. I'm going to add in the vanilla. Okay, now I'm going to mix that, or let that mix until it is smooth and even. And I'm going to make sure I scrape down the sides of the bowl here. So regardless of whether you're using a mixer or by hand, you need to use a spatula to scrape down the sides. Okay, so I'm going to pause it. Just scrape down the sides here. Okay. And let that continue going. Okay, now that that's mixed together, we're going to go into step 4, which is to combine all the dry ingredients into a bowl. Now, in my bowl right now, I already have the baking soda, the baking powder, and the kosher salt. Now, whenever you are measuring by volume, hold on, where's the, here it is. Okay, whenever you are measuring by volume, as we've kind of talked about in this class before, it's not the best way to measure things, but it can still work. You just have to make sure that you're doing it the correct way. Now, if you're measuring by volume, you may have your container of flour. The wrong way to do this would be to just stick your spoon in or your measuring cup and measure it that way. That's because if this has settled or it's kind of dense, you're gonna get a wrong measurement here. So it's super important that you take a separate spoon, you scoop it into the mixing cup, or the measuring cup I should say. And then this way, the flour is a little bit lighter in the cup, it's a more accurate measurement, and then you can scrape off to get your half of a cup. So that is step 4. I'm just going to combine these together. And then I'm going to go to step 5. Now, step 5 is a little tricky here, so listen carefully. It's not necessarily tricky, it's just you have to make sure you follow this rule. Okay, if we were to just dump in all of our dry flour now, not only would we be mixing the flour way too much before then we had to mix in the milk, therefore creating more gluten, it would kind of make a mess as is. However, if we dumped in all the milk, well, we're mixing together oil or fat, in this case with butter, and something that's water-based together. Oil and water don't want to join together. They don't get along very well. So if we were to just dump this all in at once, the batter would become like oily and greasy, and your final cupcakes would feel gritty and kind of greasy on the outside. We don't want that. So for step 5, what we're going to do here is we're going to add in half of the flour right now. And then we're going to add in the milk. And then add in the remaining half of the flour. So again, half of the flour, all the milk, the remaining half of the flour. Okay? I'm going to move the camera so you guys can see what's going on here. So I'm going to add in half of the flour. Okay, let that mix together just a little bit. Then, when you see it's just about coming together, I'm going to add in the milk. Okay. Now, occasionally you will need to stop the mixer if you're using one, just to kind of scrape down the sides. Okay. But after that, you can continue going. And now I'm going to add in the rest of the flour. Now, while this is going, I'm going to add in my 1/4 of a cup of chocolate chips. Okay. And just like the pancakes, you're only going to mix this for the first few muffins here. You're going to mix it only until there is no more dry flour, okay? You may see a little bit still on the sides here. That's what this is for, okay? So I'm going to detach this, and then I'll shift the camera again. All right, so just gonna scrape down the spatula here. Now, I know what you're thinking. You want to taste this, and believe me, so do I. Just keep in mind the flour that is in your kits, right? Your ingredient kit is bleached flour, so this isn't really the best to really be snacking on raw. Okay, you do what you want though. Obviously, I'm not there to stop you, but trust me, it's probably for the best that you don't. Okay, so now we're gonna go into our last step here. Okay, you're going to lightly grease a muffin tin, and you're going to dish out the batter into the muffin tins. And that's what one of these kind of ice cream scoops is great for. Now, for me, this should make, I would say, about 4 or 5 muffins here. What I would like you to do is I'm going to challenge you here to make 2 like normal, like you're just seeing right now. Now that I have those 2 in the muffin tin, I want to show you guys as far as what happens when you overmix something. So what I would like you to do as part of step 6, you're going to divide the batter out into the muffin tins, but after you've dished out like 2 muffins worth, what I want you to do is just keep mixing. Just completely just overmix this and see what happens. Okay. So what's happening here right now is I'm just stirring this together, and what's happening is I'm just developing way more gluten, too much gluten than I would want in this recipe. So in a way, I'm purposely screwing up this recipe to kind of prove a point. And what I'd like you guys to do, and one of the questions that will be on the Mise En Place sheet, is stir this and just overmix it. Just constantly keep stirring. So I'm going to just keep stirring for a full minute or 2, and I'm going to bake them side by side, and we'll be able to see the difference between the 2 as far as both color, flavor, and texture. Okay, now as you see here, my batter is way smoother than what's in the muffin tin right now. But because I overmixed this, this is going to be way tougher and way less tender than the stuff right there. Okay, so I'm going to go and bake this, and you're going to for this muffin recipe, you're going to bake it for about 15 to 18 minutes here, or until a toothpick comes out almost clean. I'm going to show you that a little bit later. But for now, I'm going to dish this out and bake it. Okay, so these are 2 sets of muffins. So the ones on the right are the ones that were mixed just a tiny bit, and the ones here on the left are the ones that I overmixed. As you can kind of see, even the way that they browned is a little bit different, whereas the ones on the right are a little more golden, nice, a little more toasted and ready to go. The ones on the left kind of look a little bit pale. Now, in order to tell when they are done, you've probably heard this before, take a knife or toothpick and then insert into the center. Now, as you can see here, let me kind of come around. You've probably heard the saying, keep it in until a toothpick comes out clean. However, or a knife comes out clean. However, as you can see, there's a couple small streaks of batter on the knife here. that's actually what you're shooting for. Because if you remember from Culinary Essentials with carryover cooking, if something is taken out of an oven, it doesn't stop cooking. It's still carryover, there's still carryover heat. So if you take the muffins out when this comes out completely clean, then your muffins are going to be overcooked by the time they hit the plate. So the perfect doneness is when there's a little bit of cake batter, or in this case, muffin batter, and then that is the perfect doneness. Oops. Okay. Now, if I cut into each one of these, so if I cut into the one on the left here, you see the texture of that one. Okay, so this is the one that was overmixed. You can see it's maybe a little gummy looking. It really kind of has uneven spots of cooking. Whereas the one that was mixed perfectly, you can see it's a little more even edge to edge. This one is the properly made muffin, whereas this one you can see it's a little more dense and really doesn't have a nice fluffy rise to it. So, like I said, make sure you're mixing the two of them and overmix a couple of them. That way you can kind of see what happens.